Hi, this is Danielle. As promised, we're putting out a video of my husband. This is my husband, Michael. And I briefly discussed in the first video how this petition, this law, could have made a big impact on my husband here. So, Michael, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself or.
Well, my name's Mike, and I really feel like this petition is very important because there's been several times in my life before I even met you that if this petition and this particular law would have been in effect, that it could have saved me from getting worser than what I did get. And I come close to death many times, and I had a lot of family members that were concerned about me, friends, family, wanting to get me help, and I didn't want nothing to do with that. You know,
So, first of all, can I ask you what your drug of choice is?
my drug of choice is a bit different than a lot of people's. I became addicted to Air Duster, which is a computer keyboard duster.
And the reason I want to bring that up is, when people think of addicts, as we were talking about with stigmas in our first video, they automatically assume it's heroin, it's methamphetamine, it's pills, it's cocaine, and there are other addictions out there that, which we're about to get into, that don't even meet the criteria for detox. Mike, can you tell me a little bit about what it was like trying to get into treatment last year? What it was like trying to get into treatment, how that went about. If you could share some of that.
It was virtually impossible for me to get into treatment because of what my drug of choice was. My addiction to that substance got so bad that my children ended up being taken away from me, which was, to me, that was my rock bottom. And I wanted to get help. I went to detox, I went to the hospital, I went everywhere trying to explain to them that I had been addicted to this duster. And I was told, well, that doesn't fit our criteria. There's nothing that we can do for you. I was at a point where, after my children had been taken away from me, that I wanted to get help, and I couldn't.
Can I ask you a question, Mike? So I remember you telling me that you had spent a number of days in a room after your children had gotten taken. And I believe the words that you had used were that you were in there just trying to hump yourself to death.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah. Now, your family, your father and your brother, they knew about where you were, and they were supportive in getting you help, but just had nothing they could do. Is that correct?
Absolutely. There was nothing that they could do to get me help. After my children had been taken from me by DCF, I took the little bit of money that I had left in my bank account, and I went to a motel room in Clewiston, and I was literally trying to kill myself with this drug.
Now, do you recall a conversation that we had, when we first had gotten together, where you had said, if I ever relapse, I know that I'm on a death wish. I'm on a mission. If I relapse, I know what the possibilities are, and it's not good. Do you recall that we had that conversation?
Yes, I do.
So, at some point in time, there was a relapse, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know if you want me to share a little bit about that. Maybe if you would like to share what you were going through in the hotel.
Yeah,
And then
I think we both can share a little bit about it. So, When I did have a relapse, my children, they were with their grandparents and everything, so I knew that they were okay, but I wasn't okay. And, I can remember being in that motel room that night and just, I probably had about 48 cans. I probably had 2 cases worth of computer duster sitting in that room with me. And it was my intention to sit there in that room and finish those whole 2 cases of that stuff. I mean, there was enough chemicals in there to kill a grown elephant.
Yeah, now these are legal substances. You can get them anywhere. They're extremely dangerous, extremely deadly. When I had looked it up, I read, now even though it's not a very common drug, so I take that into consideration, but 200 people a year die from abusing this. So now, there was a few text messages you had sent out.
Yes.
Asking for help, right?
Yeah.
Help me, save me, were some of the messages that I had gotten. So, I found him in a hotel. Found the hotel. He wouldn't answer the door. I didn't know which room he was in, and I had to call the police. Knowing this information of the things he had told me, that, the last time he was doing something like this, he had no regard for his life whatsoever. If anything like this were to happen again, that he would need that rescuing. Like, it would be a very serious problem. So the police get there. I explained to him now him and I were going through some difficult times, and some of those comments that were made during heated arguments were things like, I can't do this anymore. And these are those comments that I've talked about, where the Baker Act, they don't take those words seriously. It's very specific. I want to kill myself. That's what you need to say. You have to admit, or 2 people have to hear you, I want to die. I'm going to kill myself. So now, while these were implying, they did not meet the criteria. So when the police got there, they were able to find out what room he was in. He answered the door. He was clearly intoxicated. And I explained to the police. I was crying my eyes out. This has happened before he met me. He had said that if this ever happened again, that he knew there was a risk that he could die. The way that he does this stuff is like not, it's not normal. It's very dangerous. He is stuck. He is ultimately trapped, and that's what he had told me. And I'm afraid. We had been going through some problems. We got into an argument that week. And the police out there, they could see the cans there. They asked him what it was for, which...
Obviously, I lied to them. Yeah. I mean, the police knocked on the door of that hotel room, and I obviously wasn't in my right mind. And the officer could clearly see 2 full cases of duster sitting right there in the room with me. And
they asked you if you wanted to hurt yourself.
Yes, the officers were very specific about their questions. They were looking for keywords, and I had no intentions of telling them how I was actually feeling, because I'd been huffing this substance. I was in that motel room, and I had I wasn't in my right mind.
What did you tell me the only thing you could think about while me and the police were there? What was the only thought going through your mind?
The only thought going through my mind was to lie to him and say whatever I had to say to him, for him to leave the hotel room and for me to be able to go back to what I was doing. And that was a very, very dangerous situation.
So the police come back to me, and they very sadly, they look at me, they see that I am a very concerned woman. I'm very distraught, I'm scared. I had tried to talk to him, wasn't being angry. I said, please, you know what you're doing, you know what you're doing to yourself, and like most family members do, when a loved one is in a crisis and they're on drugs that are hindering their ability to think clearly and to make rational decisions for themselves. So the officer looks at me and he says, ma'am, I'm sorry. I know that he's lying. I know that he is in a bad situation. I cannot take these substances from him. They are not illegal. So therefore, if I took it, which trust me, I want to go in there and grab them, I could get in trouble. And I cannot Baker Act him because he doesn't meet the criteria. I'm sorry, there's nothing we could do. I started crying and I said, so if he could sit there tonight and kill himself, there's nothing we could do. He said, no, ma'am, I'm sorry. There's absolutely nothing we can do. Thankfully, by the grace of God, I had gotten there the next morning. He was still alive. My friends and family did not expect me to find a living boyfriend at the time. And I did. And, I prayed with him. He was out of it. The room was a mess. He was a mess. But luckily, he survived that incident. And there was a good chance that he could have suffered permanent brain damage from it. I mean, it's pretty serious stuff. So in just my life so far, you've heard a little bit about my story and, the grace that I had and the opportunity I had to be able to go to detox, and how much of an impact it had on me. You've heard the story of my sister. Addiction was different than my addiction, different causes, different origins, but still that same story like Michael, in a way of we're afraid for them, but there's nothing we can do. I know that that's just in my life. That two people that my husband and my sister, two of, the most important people in my life, that I, as long as everybody else who loves and cares about them, were absolutely helpless to help. With my sister, she didn't really think that getting help would help her, I think. Because she refused. My big thing about it is, being a former addict, I know, or, once an addict, always an addict, they say, but being at one point in time in an active addiction, I relate to what Michael said. I didn't want to go into detox. There's times that I would get Baker acted in the beginning. Oh, they were horrible. I want to go get high. I have drugs I have to do. My friends are getting high. I'm going to miss out on that. And that's what the drugs, do to your brain. Your brain believes that it needs these drugs to survive. And it actually literally changes the chemistry of your brain. So there is that clouded judgment. When, let's take now, for instance, I'm dealing with the death of my sister. I'm not dealing with it very well. Not being addicted to drugs, I'm able to recognize my good days and my bad days. I'm able to recognize, okay, if this depression doesn't lift soon, or if it starts getting worse, I know when to ask for help. I know when to ask my doctor for an antidepressant. I know I need to go to grief counseling. I know with a clear, sober mind what I need to do to better myself. In situations like where Michael is in a hotel room, or my sister is going through her notions and saying, in those moods where she's saying things like, I know how all this could go away. That's not the person within talking. That's that addiction talking. Things could have went very differently for Michael that night. He could have died, and he was asking for help. He was asking to be saved, and there was nothing that I could do about it. And it makes me wonder, how many times do we have these loved ones and they are crying out to us, help me. I can't tell you how many times my sister had messaged me and said, nobody's trying to help me. And it's like, we're trying to do everything we can. We don't know how to help you. And it's because there is only one way to help an addict who is in a mental health crisis. And that is to get them somewhere where they are with professionals, detox them off whatever medications they're on, or allow their brain to start working properly again. And start getting them linked to some resources. But as long as we can't do that, we can't save them. And it's not about us saving them, but it's about being able to get them in a position where they can get clear-headed long enough to say, I want to save myself. And do I expect every person that goes into a mandatory 7-day detox facility to be like, that was it, I'm done, I'm cured? Absolutely not. I went maybe 24 times before I finally started to get involved in recovery and believe that I didn't need to do these drugs, that there was life after addiction. And I'm happy to say that it's been over a year since I have been in any type of mental health hospital or detox facility. I'm going on, man, I don't even know what it is now. What, 11 months? 10 months? 10 months, of being sober, and thank God. Thank God for that opportunity I had. I feel it's very selfish of us to recognize that this is a way that we could be helpful, and not do something about it. So, Mike, I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story. I know you don't really like being on camera, especially we don't have the best lighting in here, and my laptop's a little grainy, but I really do appreciate you sharing your story.
Absolutely. And before we close, I want to implore anybody who's watching this video, let's come together, let's sign this petition. There's too many people that we love who are getting in these bad situations and they're dying. And I can think of at least a half dozen times to where my judgment was clouded and I could have died. I could have literally just kept doing that stuff and killed myself. And there wasn't anything that the people that I love, my friends, my family, my father, my wife, there wasn't anything that she could do to help me. We need something that goes beyond the Baker Act. We need something that goes beyond the Marchman Act. Mm-hmm. This is what we need. We have to come together. And I'm thankful to be on here and be able to be with you and share part of my story like this. And I'm really hoping that this is going to go places and that we can help save some lives by joining together on this.
Thanks, Mike. Also, I just want to add that if there is anybody who has a story that relates to what we're trying to do here, that they can either send us a message, send us an email, or comment on the page for us to private message you, and we could figure out about either retelling your story anonymously, or if you would like to do your own video. I mean, if there's anybody out there who has a story to tell, and I know that there is, we all have a loved one or have been somebody who needed that help. Please send them in to us, and let's show these people responsible for changing laws and making laws. Let's show this community and this county and this state and hopefully beyond that this is something we need. This isn't an isolated incident. Our stories, they may be unique, but they're not different. So I thank you for watching. Sorry about the delay of getting it up. And look forward to hearing some feedback and response. And please keep sharing and signing that petition. Thank you so much.